Okay, in this video, we're going to look at the division Equisetophyta, also called the Sphenophyta. So, plants that belongs to this division, the Equisetophyta, are also called, or they are called Equisetophytes. Equisetophytes. So, these are plants that belongs to the division Equisetophyta, or you can also call them Sphenophytes. These are plants that belongs to the division Equisetophyta, also known as Sphenophyta. So, what are the features of the Equisetophytes? Equisetophytes are also known as horsetails. Why are they called horsetails? Because they look like the tail of horse. So, what you can see here, this is a typical example of an Equisetophyte. They assume the tail of a horse. So that is why they are called horsetails. So one unique feature about the Equisetophytes is that they are referred to as scoring rushes. Scoring rushes. Why are they called scoring rushes? They are called scoring rushes because their epidermis is composed of silica. They are called scoring rushes because their epidermis is composed of silica, and that makes them very abrasive to touch. It makes them feel very abrasive to touch, right? So in the olden days, these plants, because of that silica deposition in their epidermis, they are used for washing the back of pots because of the silica. So that is why they are called scory rushes. They are called scory rushes because the epidermis is composed of silica, and that makes them feel very abrasive to touch. Then another unique feature of the Equisetophytes is that the cortex is composed of air spaces. Their cortex contains a lot of air spaces, and that makes them buoyant in aquatic environment. That accounts for their buoyancy in aquatic environment. So if you put an Equisetophyte in water, it's going to float. Why? Because the cortex is composed of what? Air spaces. That gives them the ability to be buoyant in what? In water. Then the kind of stele that they have is the siphonostele. We've talked about stele before, and we said stele is the arrangement of the vascular tissue in the stem and in the root. And we have two types of stele, the protostele and the siphonostele. So the kind of stele that the Equisetophytes have is the siphonostele. Very important. Examples of Equisetophytes are Equisetum hyemale, Equisetum avens, and Equisetum telmatia. So telmatia, avens, and hyemale. These are the three major examples of Equisetophytes. So let's look at the life cycle of Equisetophytes. Very important. So Equisetophytes, the main plant body is the sporophyte generation. In Equisetophytes, the main plant body is the sporophyte generation. Generally, in Pteridophyta, in the phylum Pteridophyta, the main plant body is what? The sporophyte generation, right? So in this sporophyte plant, they have the strobilus. And we've talked about what a strobilus is before. That a strobilus is an aggregation of sporophylls. Sporophylls are leaves that produce sporangia or sporangium. They are leaves that produce sporangium, leaves that produce spores, right? Leaves that contains the sporangium that produces what? Spores. So that's the sporophylls. So an aggregation of these leaves is known as a strobilus. So this is a strobilus that you can see here. This is a strobilus, right? And this is the leaf. When the leaf contains sporangium and it aggregates, it forms what is called the strobilus. So we have the strobilus here in the sporophyte generation. This strobilus, like I said, is an aggregation of the sporophylls. Sporophylls are leaves that contains what? Sporangium. So you would expect that there is sporangium inside the strobilus. So in this strobilus is the sporangium. right? So this sporangium contains a lot of spores. So when it undergoes meiosis, these spores divides to form what? Meiospores. They divide to form meiospores. So meiosis occurs here. Meiosis, it occurs here to give rise to what? Meiospores. And these meiospores are dispersed. On getting to a suitable substratum, they develop into the gametophyte plant. So this is the gametophyte generation, right? This is the gametophyte generation. And why is it called gametophyte? Because it is responsible for production of gametes. So we have the antheridium here and we have the archegonium here. The archegonium is the female part. The antheridium is the male gametes, right? So during sexual reproduction, the antheridium is going to swim from here and then go into the archegonium to cause fertilization. After fertilization, the zygote is formed, and then the zygote then grows into a young sporophyte plant that is dependent on the gametophyte plant for its nutrients. So after some time, a full-blown sporophyte plant then emerges. This is all you just need to know about the life cycle of Equisetophytes. So the life cycle starts with the sporophyte generation, and it is diploid in nature. It is diploid. It is diploid. What that means is that it contains full number of chromosomes. Same with the strobilus. The strobilus is found in the sporophyte generation, so it is also diploid. And then the sporangium is found inside the strobilus, it is also diploid, right? Then when meiosis occurs, it then becomes haploid. So when meiosis occurs in this sporangium, meiospores are formed, and these meiospores are what? Are haploid. Then these meiospores, on getting to the suitable substratum, develops into the gametophyte generation that are also haploid in nature. They contain half number of chromosomes. The male contain half number of chromosomes, the female contain half number of chromosomes. Then after fertilization, a young sporophyte, after fertilization, the zygote is formed. So the zygote is then a diploid, contains diploid number of chromosomes. And so the young sporophyte grows from there, that is also diploid. So because there is a drift from the diploid generation down to the haploid generation, we refer to the life cycle of Equisetophytes as diplohaplontic. Haplontic life cycle. What that means is that there is a drift from the diploid generation to the haploid generation. The diploid generation is the sporophyte generation. Haploid generation is the gametophyte generation. So one important thing that you should know about the life cycle of Equisetophytes is that the spores contains elaters. Elaters. These are ribbon-like structures that helps in the dispersal of the spores. So these meiospores, they contain elaters. Elaters are ribbon-like structures that helps the spores to disperse properly. So having known this, let's dash to the last division that we have under the phylum Pteridophyta, which are Pterophyta. So plants that belongs to this division are referred to as pterophytes. Pterophytes. So what are the unique features of the pterophytes? They are the largest group of the non-seedless, they are the largest group of the seedless vascular plants. They are the largest group of the seedless vascular plants. What that means is that they are the largest group of vascular plants that do not produce what? Seeds. They are the largest group of the seedless vascular plants. So note this. Also, they are found in moist and shady environment. We've established that before. They have true leaf, stem, and root. Then they have their young leaves show cicinnate coiling. So what you can see here is a cicinnate coiling, and this is peculiar with younger leaves. So younger leaves will actually look like this. because they are still young, they are not mature yet, they will have this cissonate coiling. Then older leaves are called fronds. So when the leaves become older, they stretch out to form what? The fronds. Fronds. Then underside the leaves are sporangia. If you look at the underneath these leaves, that's on the other side of the leaves, which is what we have here, you will find sporangia, a lot of them. So another unique feature of the pterophytes is that they have rhizomes. So the rhizomes, they are underground stem, which grows horizontally. So they have rhizomes which grow horizontally underground. The rhizomes are stem that grows underground horizontally. So the catch here will be what we see here, which is the sporangia, right? A group of them, a collection of these sporangia, is referred to as sorus. This is very important. And the plural form is what? Sori. A lot of them is sori, singular sorus. So this sporangium, the sporangia, they aggregate together to form the sorus. So what you see here is actually the sorus. So let's look at the different structures of the sorus, because questions can also come out from this part a lot. So the sorus, which is what we're seeing here, a cluster is a cluster of sporangia found in ferns. So it's a collection of different sporangia, well, right, found in ferns. It's a cluster of sporangia found in ferns. It plays a crucial role in reproduction by producing and releasing spores. So it plays a very crucial role in reproduction. How? It is responsible for the production of spores, and also the sorus is also responsible for releasing spores. And we're going to look at the structures that helps in doing that. So these are the various structures that makes up the sorus. Plural form is what? Sori. So sporangia, spores, receptacle, indusium, and nullus, they are the various structures that makes up this what? Sorus. So first of all, let's look at the sporangia. The sporangia, we've already looked at that before. They are small sac-like structures that produces spores. So the sporangia is just like this, and they contain a lot of spores, right? So the sporangia is what is responsible for the production of what? Of spores. Then we have the spores itself. The spores are inside the sporangia, right? Inside the sporangia. So the spores are usually haploid reproductive cells that germinates to the gametophyte generation. So when meiosis occurs in them, they are haploid. When meiosis occurs in the sporangia, it produces haploid spores, right? That then, when they are dispersed, germinates into the gametophyte plant. Then they have a receptacle. The sorus has a receptacle, and the receptacle is the surface underneath the frond where the sorus is attached. So the point where the sorus is attached is what is referred to as the receptacle. So this point where the sorus is attached is referred to as the receptacle. Then we have the indusium, and it is a membrane that covers the developing sporangium. So it's not very visible here, but if you look at this, there is a membrane that covers this sporangium, right? That membrane is referred to as what? Indusium. Then we have the annulus. This is double N, not triple N. Annulus. The annulus is a ring of tissue. What it does is that it controls spores dispersal by contracting and snapping open. So the indusium is a ring of tissue. It also surrounds the sporangium, and what it does is that it controls spore dispersal. So when it contracts, when it squeezes, it snaps open to release what? The spores. So these are the different components of the sorus that you should take note of: sporangia, spores, receptacle, indusium, and what? Annulus. The sporangia is responsible for the production of spores. Spores is responsible for production of the gametophyte generation. The receptacle is responsible for the attachment of the sorus to the what to the leaf. Then the indusium is responsible for covering the developing sporangium. Then the annulus is responsible for dispersal, right? So you should know their unique function. So let's look at the life cycle of pterophytes. Very important and straightforward. So like I said, this the dominant generation, the main plant body is the sporophyte generation, and it is responsible for the production of spores. So underneath the leaf, underneath the front is the sorus that contains the sporangia, that contains the sporangium. So this sporangium undergoes meiosis to produce meiospores, right? And when the indusium and when the annulus then contract, this sporangium, the spores in this sporangium are then released, right? So when they are released, on getting to a suitable substratum, they develop into what? The gametophyte generation. So the young and this gametophyte generation is called the prothallus. Prothallus. It is heart-shaped. So it has rhizoids, root-like structures that attaches it to the soil. Then we have the antheridium, which is the male part, and the archegonium, which is the female part. So during sexual reproduction, sperm is going to swim from here. The antheridium is going to swim from this place to the archegonium, and that is why they need water for fertilization. So it's going to swim from the antheridium down into the archegonium, cause fertilization, and after fertilization, a young sporophyte plant grows out, and then which is dependent on this gametophyte plant, and then after some time, a full-blown sporophyte plant emerges. So the life cycle starts with the sporophyte generation that is diploid. It is diploid and goes to the gametophyte generation, which is what? Haploid. Haploid. So we can refer to the life cycle of the pterophytes as diplohaplontic. So this is general with all the phylum, with all the divisions in the phylum Pteridophyta. They are diplohaplontic. That means that the life cycle involves a drift from the diploid plant, which is the sporophyte generation, to the haploid generation, which is the gametophyte generation. So this is all you need to know about the life cycle of pteridophytes.